We're live. Welcome to Lunch with EFI. Today we're going to have a delicious lunch on the East Coast or a brunch if you're on the West Coast. Our topics, the appetizer for today will be Mamdani's assault on gifted education under the title From Each According to His IQ. Then we're going to have a main dish of talking about controversy on the Religious Liberty Commission under Jason's title, Miss Congeniality Goes to Washington. And lastly, I'll give a small dessert about Spanberger, a new piece that I have published on Spanberger's double standards about what's political in higher education. So welcome to our latest edition of Lunch with EFI. So let's kick it off with you, Ian, with your delicious appetizer.
I don't know how delicious. I mean, I feel like this is an event where like you can't wait to get to the entree. You know, Jason.
Well, I think we could make this like an amuse bouche.
So I don't even know what that. I'm a cultural Philistine apparently. I don't know what that is.
In fancy restaurants, that's like the little thing of sherbet they give you. To amuse your mouth, an amuse bouche in French.
Okay, see,
it's good because it's in French.
I'm learning too. This is fun.
See, it's an educational podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. So what's Mamdani doing?
So there are reports that the plan is to basically gut gifted and talented programs, at least in grades kindergarten through 3. So right now in New York City, kids can.
So is this only in Harrison Bergeron Elementary or in all of the schools?
All schools across New York City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You didn't get my cultural reference there?
I just told you.
Yes. Has Mamdani appointed a handicapper general in order to make sure that everyone is exactly equal? You can't have kids getting it. If we're going to have a communist utopia, we can't have some people that are, ahead of others, even in terms of their intellect.
This was a Kurt Vonnegut short story called Harrison Bergeron, where everyone had to be equal. So, like, there was this graceful ballet dancer, but she has to have weights on her arms so that she's not graceful. And
if there was an intelligent person,
buzzers in their brains that prevent them from concentrating and things like that. But it's equal.
We'll have to hope that our listeners are smarter than I am. But yeah, that's that's the idea, right? Parity or equity, at least across those early grades. Apparently animated by concerns that having a gifted and talented track is somehow prejudiced or inequitable, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because
if you want everyone to be equal and some are ahead, right? It's a lot easier to pull those people down than it is to pull the others up. So if your concern is that we have a gap, that's the easiest way to get rid of the gap is to lower performance at the high end.
And honestly, probably no one knows this better than politicians in New York City. Under de Blasio's mayorship, there was a massive investment in poorly performing schools, and there was basically nothing to show for it. So,
and then you can pat yourself on the back and say, our gaps have closed. Okay, right. Overall performance is down, but the gap is smaller, and that's what we're looking for.
And apparently, if you come from that political stripe, that is more important than excellence. But look, it's crazy in the sense that, if you've met kids between kindergarten and 3rd grade, there are differences in ability, right? Maybe.
Well, and by the way, those differences aren't permanent necessarily, right? They're, some people are faster starts and some people catch up later. So, just because we are trying to teach people for where they are doesn't mean that we're holding them in that place forever.
Right.
This is not their destiny.
Right. I mean, by the way, it's not as if it's gifted and talented or vocational training. It just means, for the vast majority of kids, they're on a normal track. But the idea of gifted and talented is you're identifying some subset that seems to be especially gifted and, meeting them where they are. And, look, if this happens, I'm guessing this is one of those things that's going to be very temporary. It's going to be probably.
Well, I mean, look, these are programs that you have that help you keep your middle and upper middle class in urban schools. You have to have programs that allow them to feel like they're getting good enough quality schools that they can afford to stay in the city and not have to pay for a private school. Otherwise, they're going to move out to the suburbs or move to Florida, as is so often happening with Florida. We could have a whole separate podcast, by the way, on how terrible gifted and talented classes are. As it turns out, those programs are not nearly as good as they should be. And they very often aren't really about excellence and acceleration, but are about kind of weird particular interests of the G&T teachers. But that's a podcast for another day. We've just found further confirmation that Mamdani is going to be probably about as terrible as expected on all fronts.
You're saying when he says he's a communist, he means it? I mean, this is education communism. This is like, well, we can't have people ahead. We got it, right? So, one view of education is we should be helping every child reach his or her potential. Okay, but the problem with that is that means some kids are going to go farther than others. Some kids will end up learning more. Some students will be higher skilled than others. If you really want this communist utopia where everyone's equal, then you've got to have schools that are equally poor in how they serve their kids. And good luck.
Look, it's just about, you have to deliver basic services to people so that they, Peterson's city limits theory is still true. Cities have to do things to attract taxpayers and not over attract benefit consumers, or else they go bankrupt. Peterson did have a chapter about how New York is maybe exceptional because it has certain unique advantages that might allow it to get away with more than most. But those advantages are not permanent, nor are they enduring no matter what. And so Mamdani is going to prove that you can drive away your tax base. California's doing it. It's going to drive out all billionaires. This is a bad. And by the way, this is not a matter of your political preference. This is a matter of physics. This is a law, right? It's the law of political physics that if you don't deliver desired services and have excessive taxation, you will drive away the people who pay taxes. And if you offer excessive benefits, you will attract people who consume them. And for a locality, that the ability of people to move in and out means that driving away their tax base and attracting benefit consumers means they go bankrupt eventually, right? That is just, you can not like it, but that's like not liking gravity. This is going to happen eventually.
Well, go ahead, Ian.
I think those built-in advantages that you mentioned for New York actually are also far less true than they used to be, right? I mean,
that's right. Right. They've been eroded over because the city has tried to exploit these advantages to get away with more redistribution than localities normally can. They've eroded those advantages.
Right. In fact, they're much greater in California than they are in New York. I mean, look, it was 67 degrees at kickoff at the Super Bowl, right? And the Bay Area and Southern California, it's gorgeous, and still people leaving. So if anyone has,
New York still has some. I mean, look, it's a financial and commercial center. People want to be close to that. They're willing to pay extra to be close to it. It's a cultural center. People pay extra to be close to that. Those things have not disappeared in New York. They're not gone. Wall Street is still there, although more trading is not done there and more back offices are not there. The cultural institutions are exceptional in New York, but there are cultural institutions that are being built all over the country. So yes, these advantages exist, but they're eroded over time, and eventually they're no longer sufficient to keep the tax base necessary to keep the city afloat.
Well, Robert Condicio, our good friend of the podcast, said that Mamdani's support will survive until the first big snowstorm. And we've had that, and we saw, the New York Post headline, "The city that never sweeps," with just tons of snow in the streets. And I saw that his latest approval rating, this is a Siena University poll, has him at 46% favorability, 32% unfavorable. So still above water, but below 50%. We'll see what happens as
it's not polls, it's money.
Yeah. No,
right?
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, Jay, so I think this could be a significant source of capital flight and brain drain, especially thinking of, say, first and second generation high performing Asian immigrants. There were things that they were willing to put up with before, as long as they felt like they could get their kid a decent education. Some of those folks are going to leave now. I think, this is how you move the needle towards New York City becoming the hellscape that it was in the 1980s.
Yeah, well, okay. So with the collapse of one institution, can we turn to the collapse of another? I think it was David Burge who described what happened at the Religious Liberty Commission as grab a admired institution, kill it, clean its skin, wear its skin, or clean it and then wear its skin as a suit. Which may describe Miss Congeniality's approach to Catholicism.
Yes, I was thinking about that exact quote. Actually, I had pulled it up and I forgot to add it. So there you go. Right, wear it as a skin suit while demanding respect. That's the key thing. So what are we talking about here? So I was at the Religious Liberty Commission hearing on Monday. I am on one of the advisory boards, and this is our fifth hearing. They've almost all been in Washington, D.C. at the Museum of the Bible, and they've been fairly staid affairs. They don't get that much attention. Usually you just have a bunch of people that come in, they share their stories about being discriminated against for their religion. We've had a number of Christians and Muslims and others.
So why are you discriminating against this nice Catholic woman?
Yeah, right. So, well, what happened is that this hearing was about anti-Semitism. And one of the commissioners, no longer a commissioner, Carrie Prejean Bowler. I know I'm giving away what happened.
Yeah.
Carrie Prejean Bowler basically hijacked the commission hearing for her own political purposes. She was grilling. I mean, here are people who were, students at Harvard, at UCLA, saying, "Hey, here's what happened to us. The administration didn't protect us from." When these encampments were preventing Jews from getting to class, they were following us around, they were harassing us.
So then she says, "Why won't you denounce the genocide in Gaza?"
Exactly. Now,
why did you kill Jesus?
Right. I mean, just imagine the reverse. Imagine you had a Muslim on the committee who said, testified before the committee, who said, I was discriminated against because I was wearing a hijab. And then one of the commissioners says, "Okay, but I want you to condemn the Islamic regime in Iran for slaughter. Do you condemn what they've done to slaughter, thousands of protesters?" Of course, this is totally inappropriate. She doesn't represent the government of Iran. These people don't represent the government of Israel. Why are you asking these questions? But she was essentially saying that she felt she didn't have to be a Zionist because she's Catholic, but she was confusing Christian Zionism and political.
She actually took the position that Catholicism forbids Zionism.
Zionism, right? Now, this is like when somebody reads something but then can't actually, they get the general gist of it, but they don't have the details. So she got the general gist that Catholicism does not embrace the theological concept of religious Zionism, which says that, Jews returning to Israel and restoring sovereignty is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Okay, there are some Christians who believe that. There are Jews who believe that. The Catholic Church has not embraced that belief. But then she takes that and says, therefore, we are not allowed to be Zionists. Zionism simply being the belief that Jews have a right to self-determination in their homeland. And this is no longer a hypothetical question. People are constantly saying, well, Pope Pius X didn't support that. that was a hypothetical question, back when it was the British mandate for Palestine, should a Jewish state be established? Now you actually have half the world's Jews living here. So opposing the state of Israel and saying it should be destroyed is essentially saying that half the world's Jews should just be thrown to the wolves.
Well, and the Vatican does recognize the state of Israel.
Exactly. So she
so
also,
it is not forbidden by Catholicism to support the existence of the state of Israel and to support Zionism, understood as the right of the Jewish people to self-determination in their historical land.
And nobody who testified before the commission was saying you must be a Christian Zionist or you're an anti-Semite. Nobody was making that claim. No one said you have to be a devout supporter of the state of Israel in order or else you're an anti-Semite. Nobody made those claims. But in any case, she has now, let me see, Dan Patrick has removed her from the commission. Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, is the chair of the commission. And very classy. She has responded by retweeting Candace Owens, calling Jews occult Baal worshippers. So you can see where she stands on the issue. One thing I forgot to mention, Jay, is that
to the commission. How did she get on there?
The president appoints all of the commissioners. So there is a question about the vetting process. I know there are some reporters who are looking into that. Another thing that she wanted to litigate in this hearing was, the responsibility of the Jews for killing Jesus. And she believed that the International Holocaust...
But that would only apply to Mel Brooks because he's the 2,000-year-old man.
This is right, exactly.
All other Jews are less than 2,000 years old and would be difficult to hold them responsible.
Right. So, I mean, the interesting thing is she converted last April, so she hasn't been Catholic for an entire year yet. One of the commissioners is Ryan Anderson. Now, unfortunately, Cardinal Dolan, who's on the commission, wasn't there that day. Likewise, Bishop Barron, who is also on the commission, wasn't there that day. But Ryan Anderson, who is devout Catholic, was reading her excerpts from Nostra Aetate, Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI. And there was also a priest, Father Ferguson, who was a fellow advisory board member, who was, explaining essentially why she was wrong. I mean, they weren't.
Did she say, no, you misunderstand, or you're wrong, or she just doesn't? She just keeps going.
She just keeps going. She didn't engage with them directly. I think she would keep asking questions as though the people who had already rebutted her had never said anything. And then it became clear to me the purpose of asking these questions was to get a clip. And in a clip, you don't see any of the context that came before. And if you don't get the response you want, you can just ask the same exact question or a version of it to another person. But she was constantly asking these things of the Jews, and in one case, a Christian, but a Protestant, I think evangelical pastor. She did not want to engage with the other Catholics, especially a priest or Ryan, who clearly...
And where was she getting those questions from?
Well, so funny you asked, Jay. It's interesting. I was sitting in the second row, and there was another advisory board member, Samira Munshi, who is an Islamist, who was sitting a row in front of me, a few seats to the left, who pulls out her phone before Carrie starts talking to record her. Okay, so they were clearly in cahoots, and she was constantly texting somebody. And then Carrie was holding her phone and reading questions and other statements during the hearing. I spoke to a gentleman who was sitting behind her, and he said, yeah, the things she was saying, the things she was texting, Carrie started to say on the stage. The two of them walked out together, and they've both posted pictures of the two of them together. So just like Tucker Carlson, there is clearly this collusion with radical Islamists.
I was about to say, it sounds like the plan here is that she wants to be Tucker's next guest, and she'll probably succeed.
She will probably succeed at that.
And a career as podcaster, influencer in this weird, creepy kind of faux Catholic circle. All right, there's this weird group.
Do you understand? Like, I'm still struggling to understand this. People who sort of adopt Catholicism to, as a skin to, to target Jews. This feels very recent, and I'm not understanding.
I think that's to some extent their target is, honestly, is America and its Protestant and Enlightenment roots. So that's the thing they're unhappy about. They're the 1619 project of the right. They think America was improperly founded on Protestant Enlightenment ideas. And they're unhappy about it. They're unhappy about the Protestant Reformation, and would like to figure out how to get back to the good old days, understood here as 13th century feudal theocracy. If only then we could live on our farms and eat natural food, not this polluted junk, and fathers and husbands would be in charge on in their households, like the way it's supposed to be.
I just watched a documentary about the Black Death, and good luck.
Yeah. Well, look, I'll say she's also hiding behind Jews that are basically the Clayton Bigsbys of the Jewish community. So she's citing this like Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro says such and such, and
I mean that's as false as holding all Catholics responsible for her, right?
Well, exactly. So this is what I'm saying.
She's not really. She's this weird, faux Catholic, and I think there's this little crowd of weird faux Catholics who in no way resemble the broader Catholic community, and in no way should the broader Catholic community be held responsible for their pining for 13th century feudal theocracy, because that's not where modern Catholics are at all. And similarly, you could find some weirdo Jew out there who's unhappy about the creation of the state of Israel, or unhappy that that we don't that we consider any authority outside of the Torah or something like that, right? There are all sorts of they want to go back to a couple thousand years ago, and these people don't represent Jews more broadly. They represent barely themselves and a handful of others.
Right. So to go back to this David Birch quote, like why don't they just start their own thing? And it's clear the reason they don't just start their own religion that already reflects the views that they have, or in any of these institutions that we've seen that have been taken over in previous years, it's because they want the borrowed or really stolen authority of this older, venerable institution, and they want to be able to say this thing actually supports my view, even if it.
So there's this pattern of hijacking venerable institutions to use them for nefarious purposes, is what you're saying.
Yes, it's certainly the 1619 project is one. There are others examples that people might imagine, but yes, where you go in and 1619 project tries to get itself into public schools. You see in the universities how the radicals who are on the outside eventually take over the university system, and elsewhere, left and right. You have these sorts of examples.
Look at medical associations.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I mean, a bunch of weirdos take over the AMA, and then they want to, cut off body parts from children.
Right. That was once a respected institution. I mean,
but look, when I do it, it's fine. When you do it, though, it's political. Which brings us, Jay, to your dessert.
Good transition.
Yes, very nice. So I have nope, wrong one. Bad. Here it is.
It's on stage. It's up.
It's on stage. I just have a piece in today's Jewish News Syndicate about the politicization of higher ed in Virginia. This is a little bit old news, and I think we've even talked about it a little bit on EFI, but I just wanted to direct people to actually see the piece on JNS. And it's about how people got very upset, arguing that Youngkin was hijacking higher education for political purposes by appointing people who shared his values and priorities to the boards of visitors of those institutions. But the way it works in Virginia is that that the governor gets to appoint the board members in stages, so that by the end of that term, and Virginia governors only have one term, they would have a majority on the board, but they don't have it till the end, really, of the term. And Youngkin didn't even really succeed quite in doing that because the legislature blocked the last round of appointments. So, for example, the George Mason board, he wasn't able to actually achieve the majority that he was supposed to achieve because they blocked, for example, Ken Marcus from the Brandeis Brandeis Center from being appointed. Spanberger comes in and fires tells the existing board members, quit or you'll be fired. So she forces them to quit and then appoints the entire majority all in one swoop on her first day. Okay. And just to get a feeling for who it is that she has swooping in, instead of Ken Marcus, who is one of the nation's leading experts on anti-Semitism, who might have been quite valuable at George Mason, which is under investigation for civil rights violations against Jews, she appoints two lobbyists for Qatar to the board. And, you know, she's allowed to achieve a majority. But if she adhered to prior norms, she'd be doing it gradually and not in one fell swoop. And it would be bothersome if the people who complained that Youngkin was trying to get a majority over time, if then they do it and it's A-okay. And we do have a general problem in politics that I'm not sure exactly how we get out of, which is both sides are beginning to act like it's no longer a repeat play game. It's like it's end times for everyone. And so everyone is engaged in norm violation and sometimes rule violation or law violation because, well, it's too important. If the moment is too urgent, do you not know what time it is? And it's actually 11:28 in the Central Time Zone, just in case you need to know what time it is. And this is leading to very volatile and extreme politics on both sides becoming much more salient. And part of America's success has been holding this extremism at bay. And part of that is a confidence in the among the elites in politics and the American people that politics is a repeat play game. And therefore, it's wise to be loyal opposition. It's wise to follow norms when you're in power, because someday you won't be in power and you'll want the other. But the problem is that each side says, well, that's for losers. That's how losers behave.
Or someone we saw recently, supporting the filibuster, saying you just want to talk about it, that's female coded.
Like, right. Now, there's a lot of manly man nonsense out there. From a lot of conservative, I saw conservatives like, we need to get rid of these old fart institutions. I'm like, really? That's the conservative position, is that we need to, just because it's old, it's an old fart institution. We need to get rid of it. Like that doesn't. Right, we got to be manly men and step up because we know what time it is. This is from people who, they must want to, giggle about this at their sleepovers, after their pillow fight and before their tickle party. But that's how manly they are. They, bare-chested, greased-up manliness is really what they're looking for. Like men just hanging out with other men, enjoying the presence a lot of other men a lot.
No, but you're onto something where both sides seem to be getting very fed up with the whole idea of democracy. It annoys them to no end that the other side gets a say, that they can only go so far in their direction before it snaps back to the other direction. and they see all of these institutions of checks and balances and whatnot as just obstacles to the will of the people, which always is synonymous with my will, not their will over there. My will is the will of the people. And
well, it's almost as if we're the triumph of the will, although this is more like the triumph of the shrill.
Yes. They see that could have been our title, Jay.
Triumph of the shrill.
Yeah.
Did you have that in your back pocket, or you just came up with it?
I've been, like I stay awake at night thinking of clever phrases. So that's one of them. But and actually, I think there's a little bit of comfort I take from the fact that these people are not very numerous. I mean, they're noisy and they're bothersome, and they have grabbed key institutions so that they are destroying some of the things that help us function as a long-running, successful democratic republic. But they're tiny in number.
Although the willingness to flout norms and traditions and institutions, that is a phenomenon that's occurring beyond the influence of a small number of lunatics, right? I think it's a legitimate concern. And I don't know whether that's them informing the political process or it's just part of a larger cultural evolution. But, that is happening. I don't think we can, we shouldn't dismiss that.
Right. I still have confidence in the basic decency of the American people. The American people are, as a whole, fairly moderate in their political perspectives. Frankly, they mostly don't think about politics at all.
Which is good, actually.
Yes, right. That was great. I never understood this obsession in the field of political science with increasing voter turnout.
Yeah,
that's a horrible idea.
Right.
Voter turnout was really, really high historically in Lebanon because the side that lost, they died. So you actually don't want politics to be so important that it consumes people's lives and that they feel they must show up and participate. It's one of the great things about America is that we can be indifferent to politics and focus on things that really matter, like our families and our work and, our communities. And these are the things that we really care about in America. And we've had the luxury of not having to care about politics too much because politics has been fairly centrist. And I think, though, that people detect extremists and tend to punish them when given it, which is why we zigzag in our politics. Each extremist is bothersome. But the elites are nominating for us extremists, and so it's getting hard. I do think that there's a Trump exception here and that people misunderstand Trump. Trump's substantive political views are fairly centrist. Mm-hmm. Like he tends to pick 80-20 issues that are really broadly popular. He just talks about them in extreme ways. So his style is extreme. He is a norm violator. That's true. And it's worrisome, but he's substantively fairly centrist and he corrects. Like when he goes too far, he detects it that he's out of sync and he alters course. Mm-hmm. I worry about what happens after Trump. I think that the rest of the Republican Party and the right have looked at Trump and they've understood the wrong lesson from Trump. They think that it's extremism pays off or norm violation pays off. And that's not really the lesson of Trump. The best lesson of Trump is actually how you can violate norms by picking 80-20 issues. We don't all have to agree that boys are girls and girls are boys just because kind of a 20% of the elite have decided that. We can kind of embrace the 80% view that no, boys and girls are different things.
Right.
That is Trump. Trump is picking those easy wins, and then he engages in extremist rhetoric to trick his opponents into embracing the 20.
Well, I think part of the other appeal of Trump is the personality, which some people might find obnoxious, but part of it is that it feels kind of authentic, right? He's this boisterous New Yorker who tells it like it is, and that's kind of refreshing in American politics. And so you see other people trying to emulate that a little bit. They're swearing in front of cameras and really focusing on their identity and their background and their authenticity. But I don't think it lands the way with some of them the way that it does with Trump.
Right. This is not, and one of the other serious limitations of Trump's style is that he's an institution. He's not an institution builder, and he has been a bit of an institution destroyer. Now, some of those institutions needed a little destruction, but frankly, we really need some institution building here, and Trump won't deliver that. And I'm not sure we're going to need to get back to that. How we do it, I have no idea. I read Yuval Levin's book on the subject, and I still don't know how to do it, other than that I know that we need to do it. I just don't know how we do it. But that's something that's going to be important going forward. And this Religious Liberty Commission, I think, helps demonstrate this, that there's acceptable behavior in these kinds of fora. And
so you mentioned Yuval Levin. I mean, one of his points in that book is that institutions that previously had been formative institutions, in other words, that shape the people who are in them, and in terms of adopting certain norms of behavior, have become performative institutions, right? So you used to go to Congress and you learn how to be a legislator, and there was a certain spirit of congeniality there. You engaged in a certain way, and the debates, you would have debates. The debates were meant for the people in the room. You were trying to persuade other people in the room to get to a majority. Now you'll see all of these debates that occur, and somebody is speaking at the podium, and then they cut, and the room is empty. Nobody's there. They're not talking to their fellow Congress members. They're talking to constituents back home or potential donors or what have you. And so they're actually not even trying to persuade anymore. It's all about ginning up the base, getting yourself clicks, maybe saying something that's going to get them invited onto Fox News or MSNBC. And this is what Kerry was doing at this hearing. I was actually speaking with somebody else involved with the commission who was saying, what is she doing strategically, right? Our mission is to have all these hearings, solicit feedback. We ask questions, not to attack, but to understand. And then we are going to put together a report that's going to have a series of recommendations for the president of the United States, right? What she just did is she alienated all of the other commission members and then eventually, lost her position on the commission. But let's say that she had stayed on. How was she going to be able to offer input anymore, right? And I said, look, she's playing a totally different game. That's not her mission. She's not trying to actually engage in the mission of the institution. She's trying to use this institution to boost herself, her brand, to get clicks, to get a podcast, right? That's what she wants. And she got what she wanted out of it. Now she's gone, and she's going to use that in her favor. And she's going to say, they fired me because I'm a Catholic, even though we've got a cardinal and a bishop and several other Catholics on the commission. But yeah, it's abusing these institutions and wearing them as skin suits.
Well, David, back to David Burge, he and Jarvis,
National treasure. I don't know who that guy is. National treasure.
Yes. They were both lamenting that basically we can't even keep track anymore of what they call them scrunzies or something. I don't even understand what it is. But the point is that the payoff of becoming a podcast influencer has to be going down dramatically, because the barrier to entry is low. All one has to do is do some kind of shameless behavior in public, and then one gets to angle your way into it. And
the barrier, I wouldn't say the barrier to entry is low. It's high, but you have to clear it not with talent, but with a lack of moral scruples, right? That seems to be the new barrier to entry.
But it's low in terms of the investment is very low, right?
Yes.
It doesn't require any time or intellect. You can just kind of do it.
Look at us. We have a podcast. Talk about no barrier. We barely do any preparation, and
yes.
Do we have any expertise on the things we're talking about?
And we have literally tens of people watching right now.
And please be sure to buy my skin cream.
Yes. Have you considered gold?
No. Our new cryptocurrency EFI coin.
Wait, I have some supplements.
No, we have to say something outrageous to first get the audience, and then we can start hawking our stuff.
Right.
Well, I did say Triumph of the Shrill. I don't know, see? Is there money there? Can we make some money on that?
Well, we've given people more their money's worth because our lunch is supposed to be a half hour. We've gone almost 40 minutes now. But this has been a pleasure as always, gentlemen. And look, Jay, this, for those who don't know, this is actually in some ways an outgrowth of what used to be the JP Green blog. And the mission of the blog was actually to entertain ourselves. I thought that it was a very successful blog that ran for, I mean, how long did it run? A decade, 2 decades almost?
Yeah,
maybe?
something like that. About a decade. Yep.
And it actually became influential in education policy circles, although you didn't really set out, as far as I understand, to do that. You just had a lot of thoughts, and you had some friends who also had a lot of thoughts, and you wanted to get them down. And it ended up working out.
It got harder and harder to publish op-eds. Newspapers were dying.
Right.
So we just wanted to figure out, like, how could we just write things that we're thinking about? So that I think was the motivations that newspaper, and now, newspapers are deader than dead, and instead of, and so are blogs. So we have podcasts.
Yes.
But it's been great chatting with you guys. And look, I think we've achieved our mission for the podcast, which is to have an entertaining conversation with each other. And we hope that the rest of you who bothered to tune in might get some enjoyment out of it too. And if not, it really doesn't matter to us, actually. We're just doing that for ourselves.
That's going to sell.
But buy my supplements.
Right.
We need merch. We need lunch with EFI merch. We got to have the merch store.
In the EFI verse.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, see you next time.
Take care, gentlemen.
Take care. Bye.